very much. And Usha, before you go, you can also just mount the Daily Nation there, because there's someone here, Jacqueline Nyawira, she's asking, said that our president is out there talking of SGR when there are issues affecting people's lives, right? That is on Twitter. We can just mount that so that they can see as well. That said, our president is out there talking of SGR when there are issues affecting people's lives. So sad. So I wanted just to see what we have on the front page of the Daily Nation. Of course, where is our priority? Uhuru now seeks 370 billion shillings more to extend the SGR project. It says additional Chinese funding to take President's pet project from Naivasha to Kisumu could push construction costs to at least for 847 billion shillings, sinking the country deeper into foreign debt as debt over borrowing persists. We talked earlier, and I asked this question, that we've discovered that we have a huge expanse of water aquifer in Turkana. We've never heard from the government what they're trying to do in terms of tapping this particular water aquifer. And we have the experts saying that this can actually water this country for the next 70 years. When we have such money seeking maybe to extend from Kisumu to Naivasha, the standard gauge railway, and we have a crisis at hand right now, which should be the priority? Let's
quickly, I think it is the same thing I've been talking about, policy incoherence and indiscipline. We don't want, like, I don't know what is so difficult with the government just sitting through. They have experts, they have intellect. Who can tell them we put money here, we get the returns? For example, I was just sharing with my two colleagues, and I leave them to deal with the figures, just to show you in the first phase of the SGR, we got a raw deal. It was a raw deal, it was a raw deal because it has been compared with Morocco, it has been compared with Ethiopia. We never got it right. But the bottom line about that was, even doing that first project has sunk us into debt. It's a very good argument for them to say it's a long-term project. Fair enough, we give them credit for that. 10 years, 15 years, 25 years, we'll fill it. But how much can the Kenyan economy sustain such a big project at once? There's something different about the Uhuru regime and the Kibaki regime. I think the Kibaki regime were economically prudential in the sense that they knew how much the government can chew in terms of project implementation. They would do one, however big it may be. Like, for example, the Thika Road, they could do it because the economy could sustain at that time. You can't do, like at the moment, you can't tell me that we've just done a 347 billion, which was grossly exaggerated, and we want 347 more. At this point, in fact, last year, IMF and World Bank were cheerleading the government saying our debt levels are okay. But that was not true. Early this year, the same IMF, World Bank came back saying we are almost hitting the rails. In fact, I will take you back in 2016. The parliamentary, the budget allocation committee, they were given clear warning by economists that please don't allow government to hit the budget ceiling, don't increase it. And it took such a long time for them to approve the increase of the budget ceiling. So tell me, if we are going to get more 347 more, what do we expect in the next year or two for us if already a third of our budget is used to pay debt? How worse can we get? How much deeper do you want to sink? That is a question I think the government needs to answer. And
you need also to see the flag on top there of the Daily Nation, where it puts the 18,000. If we just pick up the Daily Nation, we see what the flag is saying there on the front page there. It says, each Kenyan to all China, 18,413 if Chinese Exim Bank approves request. So we can actually add this to the 90,000 that Raila Odinga was talking about, right? That every child who is born will be crying, 90,000, right? Is slapped on that. So we can add all this money as well. Let's hear from you, Boni Khalwale.
I think this headline, Jubilee really needed it, because we have cornered them in the recent past by the pronouncement that the standard gauge rail line was simply going to serve the president's farm in Naivasha. And it was looking very bad politics for them, and for us, very good. So they needed this headline so that the people in the western part of the country can think that the standard gauge line is going to as well serve them. That notwithstanding, I want Kenyans to think, from Mombasa to Nairobi, Uhuru constructed the SGR at 327 billion, 500 kilometers.
609.
Yes, 500 kilometers. And now...
609 kilometers.
Yes. Yes. And now, from Kisumu to Naivasha is only 260 kilometers. Kisumu to Naivasha, 260 kilometers. He wants to spend 370 billion. So he's going to spend more money constructing this rail line on a short distance of 260 compared to the 609 kilometers Mombasa to Nairobi. It doesn't add up.
You forget the fact also they were seeking 40 billion shillings that now this particular SGR, they've discovered that it will be electrified. So that was not also in the provision of a budget.
No, it cannot be. The amount of power that we have in the country, you cannot power that rail line. You need to, first of all, develop the amount of power that we generate in the country for you to electrify all our rail lines. It's not possible. So this begs the question that was pointed to by both Joshua and Miguna, i.e. that do we really have professionals around the leadership of the country thinking for them, advising them? And if they do, why are they not seeing the obvious? Even if they are advising them on stealing, how can you steal so as to construct 260 kilometers at 370 billion when you constructed 600 kilometers at only 327 billion? Thieves!
All right.
Debarl, what this says to you, this is a very critical point.
Yes.
And it is something that was brought up on Sunday by one of your writers called Bindra. This is why you need to elect leaders that are visionary, that are capable of understanding complexities of policies, be able to conceptualize them and implement them. That is why you don't need leaders, Mitumba leaders that are handouts. You can't think. It is very important to think. I will give you a comparative analysis. In Morocco, for example, they built a 350-kilometer standard gauge from Casablanca to Tangier.
Yes.
And they spent 205 billion.
And it's electrified.
205, and it is electrified. Then the Ethiopians from Addis Ababa to Djibouti, they built 750-kilometer standard rail, which is electrified at 340 billion. So what this tells you is that we have nearly 200 billion that is in excess of what a reasonable cost of a standard gauge rail from Mombasa to Kisumu would be. So where would be the 200 billion be going? Even if you take into account issues of topography, and Ethiopia actually is more hilly than Kenya. If you take into account the issue of inflation and the different rates that the dollar exchange rate from the dollar to the shilling, still that is a whooping excessive amount.
Correct.
So what we want is responsible spending. But as you said before, what is a priority now? Is the priority now to feed the nation or to feed this beast called SGR that we don't know if it is going to be even economically sustainable? What is it that it is going to transport, say for example from Kisumu to Mombasa, that would be able to feed Kenyans vis-a-vis what is facing us now? If I was advising the government and I wanted to win this election, yes, which I think they want to win, I would bring the president back. I would rescind this negotiation. I would not get this money for the SGR. I would suspend the SGR. I would leave it where it is now. I would come back and deal with food. I would come back and deal with issues of poverty. I would come back and deal with jobs.
Thank you.
That is what the youth need.
All right, thank you. Let's hear from Wamatangi. Briefly, as we're winding up as well, just prepare your headline.
Yeah, sure. Debarl, I remember that a few weeks ago we were here with Boni and discussing this same topic. And Boni, I can quote you word for word in what you said. You said that this SGR thing is a farce and it will never work. And you give your reasons. You know what you said?
I still stand by that.
You said that for that railway to work, it would have to start from Mombasa and end in Kisumu. Period.
I didn't say
That's what
that.
you said. You said it is now ending in Naivasha. What business will it do in Naivasha? Now, when it is now clear to you, and I just want to make this as my opener and very quickly, when it is now clear to you that indeed, according to the plan of the SGR, and I want to remind my friend, because he said here that, Wakili, that during Kibaki's time, planning was better, and this SGR would not have been undertaken. Be reminded that SGR is part of the Vision 2030 project.
That's true.
Yes, and this was planned during Kibaki's time. And so saying that, that for example, that extending it to Kisumu, and for your information, my colleagues, I'm a member of the Transport Committee in Parliament. I have had the opportunity to question this project, having the same mindset that my colleagues have before, until facts came out. One, right. SGR was planned in 3 phases. That is the phase from Nairobi to Mombasa, phase 2, that is 2A from Nairobi to Naivasha, and phase 2B from Naivasha to Kisumu. And that's why it comes in those phases. And as Miguna says, and Miguna, it is good to, to emphasize your good point where you've made a good point. Don't make it as a by the way. Make it as a firm point. The point that you made, which is the fact. One, if you cannot compare the railway line in Nairobi or in Kenya and Morocco. Morocco's capacity in terms of tonnage, they do only 10 million tons per year. We do 30.
Thank you.
In Ethiopia, they do 7. We are doing 30. The design, the type of our railway, and you guys have even had. Gentlemen. Now listen.
No, we need to be
this is my view.
Thoughts, please.
And these are the facts. You cannot dispute the facts. Two, my friends, listen. I made a very simple point, and you can be able to verify.
Headline thoughts, sir.
When you say that even if you consider topography, in phase 2 of this railway, coming from Nairobi, going through the Rift Valley, you can count the number and size of bridges built between the end of Kiambu to land in Naivasha.
Thank you.
I mean, the terrain is different.
Okay.
The terrain is different. The type is different. And so we have to compare oranges for oranges and mangoes for mangoes.
All right, thank you. 30 seconds,
30 seconds,
please.
It should not be lost to Kenyans that it is not only unga which is causing our lives a nightmare. Also the issue of milk and sugar. And Kenyans, please, don't you forget that there is a company in Kenya owned by a senior politician that buys milk from a farmer at 30 shillings per liter, goes and removes the fat, adds water, sells the same milk to Kenyan consumers at 80 shillings half a liter. I don't know whether it is true. I hear that company is called Brookside. I also hear that it is associated with President Uhuru. Maybe Wamatangi would have corrected. Secondly, and lastly, the issue of sugar. Sugar is expensive not because of failure for us to produce sugar, but because the president once upon a time woke up and agreed with Museveni that they should bring in an uncustomized sugar. He has then thrown the sugar economy into confusion, and this is why sugar is expensive. Uhuru should take blame for the cost of milk and the cost of sugar.
Right, Miguna. 30 seconds, sir.
Debarl, I have 2 things to say. There is an issue
within 30 seconds.
Yes, I know.
Please.
Of course, it's gone over 30 seconds. There was the issue of the IBC ruling of the High Court and whether or not it should be appealed. My view is this. When a constitutional court makes a decision, usually institutions of state obey it. And this was a constitutional court's ruling. Yes. It is good for democracy that election results should be announced at the constituency level. Now, whether or not those results may be changed administratively because of problems with tabulation is another issue. But lastly, on this issue of food security, that's why you need leaders of integrity. This country has had a train wreck of leadership, both in parliament at the executive level. And I think Kenyans have a real choice this time coming August. Get rid of all these failures.
Thank you.
And elect leaders of integrity.
Thank you, Kiptoo.
Yes.
I'll
Very
quickly
briefly.
answer Senator Wamatangi when it comes to planning. The idea of economic planning is that you plan and you have physical discipline on the same. When you plan to have SGR, you have to put it on the same plane with the Kenyan economic situation. Can the Kenya economy sustain this? That is the question. Like one, the first phase, it has already saddled us with debt. Let's be satisfied with that and look at what happens next. So when it comes to the policy planning and implementation, all factors have to be on the table. He has to accept that Jubilee has failed on that part because one, I feel most projects are done on the basis of just acclamation. And to the last point, just to be clear on that, I would be more particular with Wamatangi, just to remind him, Total and Uganda refused to be part of this second project and the pipeline because of inflation.
Thank
How
you.
much do we get for land? Same.
Yes,
Thank you.
I just want to say to Kenyans that the way forward for our country now, and especially the demand that Kenyans must make of leadership, is have a responsible leadership, especially one that makes its argument on facts and figures and truth. Because the reason why we are where we are is because we have had political leadership that has capitalized on misleading people and emotionalizing things as sensitive as our food security, as our transportation, as our better tomorrow. And so the moment we demand of leaders that once you get into position, if you want to tell us where to go, be factual, be honest, be truthful.
Thank you.
Don't play politics with everything that comes your way. Then that is the way we are going to transform in this change in this country. The problem we've had and why we are where we are is because we have entrusted our future to people who are only interested in themselves.
Thank you.
And
Thank
playing politics with everything
Right.
that comes their way.
Right.